understand the difference between a need versus a want. Because you need a car to get to and from work. You just want a BMW. You need nice clothes to wear to your job. You just want Gucci. You need a home to live in. You just want the 3,500 square foot house. You need food to eat. You just want to shop at Whole Foods. And this is where now you have to understand that difference between a need and a want. And when you're trying to now plug that hole, you're going to have to really dig in and see, what do you really need, and strip that down. Because when you have large amounts of debt, when you start stripping this down and you start getting rid of some of the wants, which you thought were needs, now you're going to start freeing up some more cash. And that's going to allow you to pay down that debt much quicker. But most people are so focused on just what's the best debt payment strategy, debt snowball, debt avalanche. But if you don't start with the basics, if you don't start with the mindset, if you don't start with plugging the hole, it doesn't matter which strategy that you do, it's going to take you forever to pay down that debt. And this is where, it's a lot harder to make that sacrifice. You're going to have to put in more work. You're going to have to put in more time. And people are going to look at you like you lost your mind when you go from a BMW to a Toyota Corolla. But when you do it the right way, and you take that extra money that you no longer have to pay for the insurance, because have you ever seen the insurance payment on a BMW or the maintenance cost on a BMW versus a Toyota? Now you save that money, and you can use this money now to build your wealth, but in this case, pay down the debt. And I'm going to talk about how you build wealth versus pay down the debt. I'm going to get to all that in this video. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but this is where right now, what you need to do is plug the hole so money stops leaving out of the ship. The easiest way to build wealth is to stop letting the money leave. That way now you have the money to build your wealth. And right now, that means you're no longer letting the money to leave. That way you have more money to pay down your debt. So step number one, we just plug the hole. It starts with what's between your ears, and then it's what you do with your money. Now, money is going to stop leaving, and this is going to be painful because people are going to look at you like you lost your mind when you stop going to Cancun for the vacations, when you stop going to Benihana's every Friday night for dinner, and when you stop going out and driving the BMW. People look at you like you lost your mind, but at least you're going to have a bigger bank account. Now that you have plugged that hole, that's when you can move to number two, which is, how do you get the water actually out of the ship? How do you get the debt out? What's the best and fastest way to actually pay down the debt? Now you can start looking at different debt pay down strategies. Dave Ramsey talks about the debt snowball method. You have the debt avalanche method. What the debt snowball method is you're going to pick out all of your different debts now, and you're going to lay them out from the smallest debt size. So the $200 debt, the $2,000 debt, the $20,000 debt, you're going to lay them out. You're going to ignore the interest rate. And now you're going to start attacking each debt individually, but you're going to start with the smallest debt amount. You're going to ignore the interest rate. You're going to start with the smallest debt amount first. You're still making the minimum payments on everything, but you are going to attack the smallest amount first. The whole idea here is you're going to get those psychological wins, because when you pay down one debt, you feel like you won. Now you go to the next debt, and then you start attacking that. And again, you're ignoring the interest rates here. The alternative is what's called the debt avalanche strategy, which is now you're going to lay down one debt, the second debt, the third debt. You're going to lay down all of your debts, and you're going to lay them out by the highest interest rate first. So you're going to lay out the 24% interest rate first, then the 12% interest rate, and then the 6% interest rate. And now you're going to ignore how much money each debt has, and you're going to pay down the highest interest rate first. Now, the advantage with the debt avalanche is financially, you generally will save more money over the long term, because now you're attacking the higher interest rates first with the debt avalanche. But from a psychological perspective, what Dave Ramsey says is more people are likely to stick with the debt snowball method, meaning attacking the smaller balances first. Even though it might cost you a little bit more, you'll actually stick with it because psychologically you feel like you're winning. I don't really care which one you pick. You got to know you. For me, I am a numbers person. So to me, the avalanche method makes more sense to me because I know I'm disciplined. When I'm financially disciplined, I will do whatever it takes to hit that financial goal. If you don't feel like you have that financial discipline, go with the debt snowball. It does not matter. The biggest thing is that you stick with it, and you got to know yourself. But you have to know what's going to be right for you. And then the question is, how can you use little tricks to help you pay down this debt much faster? Because the next thing that you can do is you figure out the right strategy. Debt snowball, debt avalanche, that's the irrelevant part. You figure out what's the right strategy, and then you start paying down your debt. But then the next thing that you can do is, how can you be more aggressive? And the simplest thing that you can do here is, instead of paying your payments once a month, is you take a monthly payment. Let's say your monthly payment is $2,000. You divide it up into two. So now it's not $2,000, it's $1,000 twice. Now, instead of paying $2,000 a month, you pay $1,000 every 2 weeks. Now, this might not seem like a big difference, but what ends up happening now is, instead of making that $2,000 payment 12 times in a year, what you're going to do is you're going to make a half payment 26 times in a year, which means you're going to make 13 full payments. Because now what's happening is, every 4 weeks, you're paying $1,000. And over the course of the year, instead of paying $2,000 times 12, which is $24,000, you're going to pay $2,000 times 13, which is $26,000. So you just added a whole nother monthly payment without even thinking about it, because now you're paying every 2 weeks instead of every month. That's the first thing you can do. So now, when it comes to paying down the debt, now you've figured out that snowball versus debt avalanche. Now, pay every 2 weeks instead of every month. That way you can attack your debt even more. Then the third thing is, you're going to combine what we did with plugging the hole with here, which is, now you are going to work to have more money to pay down the debt. Because this is where now it's just a simple math problem. If you have $10,000 worth of debt, you need $10,000 plus interest to pay down this debt as fast as possible. Now, you could come up with the best strategies in the world, but until you can come up with that money, you're not going to be able to pay down the debt. So how do you get that money? Well, you can either spend less money, or you can work to earn more money. When we talked about how to plug the financial hole, we talked about different ways to spend less money. You are no longer spending money on things that you don't need. You are no longer going to buy things that you cannot afford. Now, you're also not going to spend all of your money. You're not thinking in terms of net zero. This way, you have more money. This is the most accessible way, not the easiest way, but the most accessible way to have more money. Now, when you have this more money, what do you do with it? If you have that high interest debt, this is where now you need to be paying down that debt as fast as possible. So now, if you don't need it, you don't spend it. Now, you take the money that you're not spending because you don't need it, and you have more money. Now, when you have this more money because you work to spend less, now you're going to take this money and you're going to attack your debt with it. And this is where now you're going to work to pay down the debt. And now, when you pay your debt payments in advance, because you're going to have extra money to pay it down, you also want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're sending the extra money to your bank or to your credit card company, that your money is going to your principal balance, not to make the next month's payment. And this is something you definitely want to make sure, because when you are working to pay down the principal balance, you're actually paying down the amount of debt that you owe. If you owe $10,000 worth of debt and you send in an extra $1,000, well, now that debt goes from $10,000 to $9,000, and you don't have to pay interest on that. That's what you want. But when you go to pay your next month's balance, now what you're doing is, instead of bringing down your debt balance, you're just making your future payments. So you're still paying interest out of the extra $1,000 that you sent in. That's not what you want. When you're working to pay down that debt, you want to pay down the actual principal balance. You want to attack that instead of just making your future payments with the extra money. So make sure now, when you're working to send in that money, that you figure out what that money is actually going towards. You want to pay down the principal balance. Then the next thing you got to do, so we've talked about now how to spend less money. The next thing that you got to do is you got to figure out how you can earn more money. Now, the first way you can earn more money, which is, again, the most accessible, not the easiest, definitely not the easiest, but the most accessible, is to just sell some of your stuff. If you got a BMW sitting in the driveway and you got credit card debt, your priorities are in the wrong place. Now, I know this is going to be hard and painful, because I like cars too, but you got to get rid of the BMW, because that is bleeding, costing you a lot of money. And it's not just the car payment, it's the insurance, it's the premium gas, and it's the maintenance and everything in between. You got to get rid of that flashy stuff, whether it's the cars, whether it's not going out on vacations, but we're talking about selling things, whether it's getting rid of some of the expensive clothes, whether it's getting rid of some other expensive toys. Look around you. Are there things that you can sell, that you can downsize? Maybe you downsize your home. Maybe you go from a home to an apartment. Maybe you go to a smaller apartment. This is not fun. But this is also not permanent. The goal here is to pay down this debt as fast as possible. That way you can get to building your wealth as fast as possible. That way now you're not compounding your credit card company's wealth. You're compounding your own wealth. That way you can start living in the bigger homes and have the faster cars sooner and not have to worry about the money. Because the mistake that so many people make, the reason why people end up in debt is because they want the nice things today. And this is where, it's painful, but also helpful to understand what debt is. When you use debt, you're using tomorrow's income today. When you go out and you borrow $50,000 to go out and buy a car, or you go out and you borrow $5,000 on your credit card, you're using tomorrow's income, next year's income, and the years after that's income, and you're spending it today. And when you spend it on a liability, something that's not making you any money, like a car or clothes or vacations, that money is being spent and not earning you any money. And now you have to spend tomorrow's income and the day after that's income to pay it back plus interest. That's what debt is. And when we have this economic system that relies and runs on people spending money, well, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just spend, because that's what everybody's doing. It's just normal. That's what everybody does. Who doesn't finance the car? Who doesn't have credit card debt? Who doesn't use buy now, pay later? That's what's normal. But if you don't want to be like everybody else, you can't keep doing what everybody else does. And so now when you're trying to pay down the debt faster, now what you got to do is you got to figure out how you can get more money so you have more money to pay down that debt, because now you need more money today to pay for yesterday's purchases. And the fastest way to do that is to get more money. Now we talked about how to spend less, we talked about how to sell some of your stuff, but now you got to figure out how can you actually earn more money. And maybe that means you got to get a second job. Maybe that means you got to do something you don't like that we can earn more money. Maybe that means you got to create a side hustle. Maybe that means you got to work as a contractor. Maybe that means you got to work as a freelancer. Maybe that means you got to go out and start a business. Maybe that means you're going to have to go out and do something that we can get more money. But again, let's go back to the core. Why are you earning more money now? Because your goal isn't to earn more money so you can have a faster car or go on another vacation. Your goal right now, and this is the difficult part, you're going to be working to earn more money. But when you get that extra $2,000, you're not going to go out and buy something with it. You're not going to go out and invest that money. You're not going to go out and save that money. You're going to take that money. You're going to pay down this debt as fast as possible, period. Now, of course, you do need to have some emergency savings there, but you need to attack this debt, especially if it's high interest debt, because this is debt that's skinning you alive. When you have these debts on your liabilities, you are compounding somebody else's wealth. That's the name of the game. Because now that other person who you borrowed money from, that business who you borrowed money from, is making money on you. And when you buy a liability, you're getting hit twice. When you buy a car with debt, now not only did you buy something that's losing value, but you have to pay interest on something that's losing value. It's a double whammy. And this is where right now you have to work to earn more money. That way you have the ability to pay down debt. And that's where now when you earn more money, you have to remember the reason why you're earning more money is so you can pay down the debt. So the first thing you did is you plugged the hole. That means you cut up the credit cards, you stop going deeper into debt, you're no longer buying things that you cannot afford, you're going to be looking into needs versus wants, you're going to be looking into assets versus liabilities so you don't keep spending on liabilities, you're going to be using the rule of 5. That way now you don't keep going deeper into debt. Now, immediately you're going to have some more cash. And now that brings you to number 2, which is now how do you get the money out of the ship? How do you get the debt out? This is where you got to come up with the right debt payment strategy for you. You can look at the debt snowball method. You can look at the debt avalanche method. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You just got to stick with it. Now you start sticking with it. Now, the next thing you could do is you can start paying your payments twice a month or 2 times every 2 weeks. You pay it every 2 weeks. You're going to make a payment. That way you can kind of just discreetly send an extra payment to whoever you owe your debt to. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure that the extra payments that you're sending are going to the principal balance, not next month's payment. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to be working now to have extra cash. So we already talked about how you spend less money. That spending less is going to give you more cash so you can pay down the debt. Now you throw that money at your debt that we can pay down the debt faster. The next thing you can do is you got to sell some of your stuff. You downsize your car, you downsize your home, you sell some of your clothes, you sell what other junk that you have, that we have more cash. You free up this junk, turn it into cash. Now you take this cash and you pay down your debt. Now, the next thing you do is you're going to work to earn more money. Maybe a second job, maybe you work to get a raise, maybe you work to get a promotion, maybe you work some overtime. You got to get some more money in your hands. Now, when you get this more money, again, you're going to take this money and you're going to attack your debt with it. Because now the goal is to pay down the debt as fast as possible, because this debt is compounding somebody else's wealth while you need to be building your own wealth. Which then brings us to number 3. You got to now steer the boat away from the storm. That way you never end up in this financial situation again. I'm going to jump back into the video in just 1 second, but before we do, if you are an investor and you're looking for an easy and free way to stay up to date on what's happening in the top financial news, from the economy to the housing market to the stock market to the crypto market to the global economy, then you have to check out Market Briefs. Market Briefs is my free financial newsletter that I created that will keep you up to date on what's happening in the financial news. You can read the newsletter in less than 5 minutes every morning. It's a fun and easy to read email, and it's completely free. So if you haven't joined Market Briefs yet, I got the link to how you can join down in the description below. I was reading a study just the other day which says that the average American household has right around $6,000 worth of credit card debt. It has become so normal to finance things. And this is where, you get into this debate where, the cost of living is so high, that's why people have to finance things. And you're right, the cost of living is high. You're right, the cost of living has grown faster than wages. You're right, sometimes this stuff is screwed up. You're right, bankers take advantage of people. You're right, corporations are in the business of trying to make a bigger profit. They're trying to sell more things. They spend millions, if not billions of dollars a year trying to get you to open up your wallet and give them money. That exists. Complaining about it and blaming them is not going to fix the situation. This is where now you have to get financially educated and understand this, and yes, make some sacrifices. That means you have to be willing to now live within your means. And yeah, that sucks. That means you're going to have to not be able to buy the things that you want today, because in the system, in the society, everybody wants to have the things that they want today, even if that means you cannot afford it. And that might mean you might not have the coolest and the nicest things, but if you really want to steer yourself away from the storm and never end up here again, that means what you need to do right now is always live within your means. The simplest thing that you can do is follow something like my 75, 15, 10 plan, which says for every dollar that you earn, for here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend. 15 cents is the minimum that you're investing, and 10 cents is the minimum that you're saving. This way now, whether you're making $25,000 a year or $2.5 million a year, you're always paying yourself first. And by paying yourself first, I mean actually investing your money first, saving your money first before you go out and make everybody else around you rich. Because when you go out and you finance a brand new BMW, or when you go out and you buy some new Gucci, you are buying an asset for somebody else. It's a liability for you. It's losing money for you, but it's making somebody else rich. When you go out and you buy the BMW, you made the salesperson rich, you made the dealership rich, and you made BMW rich. When you go out and buy the Gucci, well, you're making Gucci rich, but it's at the expense of your wealth. Now, there's nothing wrong with having nice things. I want you also to hear this from me too. I want you to have the nice things. That's why we're all working so hard, is so you can have all the nice things, have the freedom, and have the stuff that you want. I want you to be able to afford it first. That way you're not sacrificing your future wealth and your family's wealth and your generational wealth just so you can drive a fast car today. Because that fast car today is going to look cool, but eventually it's going to run out. You're going to want to get a new car, and then you're going to start the payments game all over again, and you're never going to have the opportunity to build wealth, and you're going to keep blaming everybody else because you're constantly playing the same game the same way everybody else is. You're running into that same wheels. You're working to earn more money, and you can't figure out why you can't get ahead. And the reason why is because every time you earn more money, you start spending more money. And this is where right now you got to cut out the crap, get out the stuff that you don't need. And this is hard. I get it. You're going to have to make sacrifices. Nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants the 6 steps to 6 figures in 6 months. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, it sells for a nice course on the internet, but it doesn't actually make you any wealth. And this is where right now, if you really want to build your wealth, you got to make the hard decisions. You got to sacrifice some of the things that you don't need. Then you got to work to earn more money. Then you got to pay down the debt. That way, then once you do that, you never end up in this situation again. And now what you're doing is when you're earning more money and you're spending less money, you're doing it that way you can invest, because your investments are what is going to make you wealthy. Your investments are what's going to allow you to have financial freedom. Your investments are what's going to buy you that ticket. That way you can live the life that you want. It's not going to be your savings. It's not your salary. It's your investments. But you can't build these investments if you're loaded up on debt, because now your mind and your money is going to be going to pay down this debt, especially if it's high interest debt, which is where now You have to understand how to use the system to your advantage. If you want to be a successful investor, there are 10 mindset traits that every successful investor has that I'm going to go over in this video. And number one, if you want to be a successful investor, being avoiding the shiny object syndrome. Now, when I say shiny object syndrome, I don't mean now you take your money and you go out and buy fancy cars and nice things because that's the attractive thing to